Welcome back, everyone. I'm the Bella Gamer, and we're back. I took a break yesterday, mostly because my body told me to. I didn't wake up for quite a bit, and then it was already halfway through the day. I've been having some serious insomnia in during this period. I don't know if I'm just been overworked and I need to chill out a little bit, which probably is the case. But I want to get as much of this information out before the actual release of the material to everyone. So I'm going to push for a little bit longer. But, I am listening to my body when it tells me to stop. So today we're going to be looking at the rank 3 and 4 spells. Now, I made a serious miscalculation when it came to trying to identify how long these videos would take. Because this video is probably not going to be that long. But the problem is I'm reading literally every single spell. So even with the shorter spell lists, I'm still reading every spell. And even if there's not a lot of changes, it takes about the same amount of time as the longer spell lists, especially when you start grouping them together. So that being the case, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. There might be one more video after this one. It might be two. I'm not 100%. I'm feeling a lot more confident that it will be probably one more video after this one. I might just push for a longer video because I don't want this to drag on too long. And actually, you all can let me know if you like the spell change videos or not down in the comments. Oh, actually, speaking of, before I get into this video, I do want to thank Paizo for providing to me the player core and the GM core. I'm sure you guys are tired of hearing about this. But, it's just something that I did get for free, so I figured you guys should know. But this is not sponsored content, so all thoughts and opinions here are my own. Let's get started. Now, before we get to any of the third rank spells, I do want to say I did miss Tailwind in my first video for spell changes. It's a level 1 spell, Tailwind. It replaces Longstrider. So, I don't know how I missed that. Probably just skimming, trying to get through this, as quickly and efficiently as possible. There's just one of the spells I missed. But yeah, Longstrider is Tailwind, which I'm happy for because I actually really like Longstrider as a spell. And many people mentioned it in the comments. So yeah, got that all figured out. So let's get started. Aqueous Orb actually did get some minor changes. It mostly operates the same as it used to before, but now you cannot sustain it, or the spell doesn't state that you can sustain it multiple times in a round, which I think actually makes a lot of sense. Aqueous Orb could be a big menace of a spell just because of how many creatures it could wrap up in it very easily. And so I can definitely see why this was the case. The only other thing I can really mention about it that changed was the failure by the creature no longer causes the creature to be grabbed, which is a condition. So I'm pretty sure that was just removed because maybe some creatures were immune to being grabbed or the grabbed condition, but that wouldn't necessarily work for the orb. I don't know. It's just something that I noticed here when I was looking over Aqueous Orb. So yeah, I guess kind of a nerf, kind of a buff. It more or less stays the same. It's just very interesting that now you can't sustain it multiple times in a single round anyway. This isn't a change. It's just something I noticed. We still have Fireball, which honestly is one of the most iconic spells of D&D. And I just want to say I'm not even going to speculate on this one, right? Because everyone has their own thoughts, and there's no reasoning with it. I just thought it was interesting that we still have Fireball. Who knows why? So a couple of name changes now. We have Searing Light that got changed to Holy Light. Just, it makes a lot more sense. It is a holy spell. I think it just makes it easier to identify, so I think that makes a lot of sense. I think Searing Light, I don't even know if it's a D&D spell. It might be a D&D spell. I don't know. I don't mind the name change at all. I think in fact, it makes it more meaningful because it identifies it more easily as a holy spell, even though Chilling Darkness is still the same rather than Unholy Darkness, which I think Unholy Darkness sounds cooler in my opinion, but I don't know. An interesting name change. Along with that one, Hypnotic Pattern got changed to Hypnotize. Now, I do know Hypnotic Pattern is in D&D, so it made sense to change the name. And Hypnotize, honestly, just makes it sound a little bit better, in my opinion. So, yeah, a very solid name change there. A slight change to one common spell. So, Meld into Stone, which is in D&D, got changed to One with Stone. And it essentially works the same as the One with Plants. So, if you're unfamiliar, if you didn't watch the last video, One with Plants, you had a 10-minute merge. You can merge into a plant, or an 8-hour become plant. Now you have merge into a stone for 10 minutes or become stone for 8 hours. So yeah, more or less, it's not anything super major, but I do like this change, especially because now you can use this as a stone version to hide in areas that normally don't have plants, which I think actually is a pretty big buff to One with Stone. Here's an interesting one. So Zone of Truth got changed to Ring of Truth, which I think, and it got reworked a little bit. It's very, very slight. Now, in Ring of Truth, no matter what, creatures inside have a -2 status penalty to their deception checks. They don't need to fail the check to get this penalty or whatever, which I think actually makes more sense. I think one of the things about Zone of Truth that was always confusing was on a failure before you would take a -2 status penalty to your deception checks, and you couldn't intentionally lie, which means what was the deception check for? I mean, obviously you could word it as they were trying to kind of speak around the truth, and that would be the deception check. Now it just makes a lot more sense that in general, it's just harder to lie because you have to speak in a very specific way, and that means the tells are a lot easier. And also now Ring of Truth does something slightly different. Now, whenever a creature within the zone tells, or within the ring, tells a truth or a true statement, a soft ring of a bell sounds in the area. I think this actually creates a much more interesting dynamic. Before, it could be hard to make especially a really good liar, kind of give away what's going on, and giving a confirmation of a truth, I feel, speaks a lot better to what is being said. It makes it a lot easier to verify things, because that was kind of the ironic thing about Zone of Truth, is it actually didn't confirm truths, it only prevented lies. So Ring of Truth now confirms truths, which makes a lot more sense. And there's actually a little bit more of a workaround. It's not right now, the spell really doesn't identify like false statements as it was, but it does allow someone to lie. If they get a crit success on the spell, they can lie and the bell will ring to any statement they make. And if they succeed, as long as their deception check works against all targets within the zone, the bell will still ring. But now on failure, and there's no crit failure anymore, the bell will never ring unless the statement is true. So personally, I like the way this one works a lot better, because that's the thing with lying, is lying can be done in like half-truths and so many things. And while you can still tell half-truths and technically, I guess, still get the bell to work, it makes it a lot easier, I feel, to narrow it down. So overall, I just want to say that, like, I like the new idea of Ring of Truth, which is it identifies truths rather than prevents lying, because then the target could just not talk. And I mean, while they still cannot talk, there's a lot more to it, and this can be done in a lot more situations other than just interrogations, after all. As Ring of Truth now can be used to verify to other people that you're telling the truth, where Zone of Truth before just only verified that you weren't lying, potentially. And I feel like this is just a better version of the spell overall. All right, here's a very interesting change. Speak with Plants got moved down to spell rank 3. So it's no longer spell rank 4, and it's been buffed slightly, lasting now 1 hour rather than, I think it was like 10 minutes before. So that's a pretty big buff. Now we do see there's an error here. It says this is 2 sets of 2 actions or 4 actions potentially. Yeah, there's an error with the thing. One of the least egregious ones in my eyes, just because now it doesn't create any confusion on how the spell works. It's just an obvious error. But yeah, so Speak with Plants getting reduced down to spell rank 3, which I think is a lot better. I would much rather use a 3rd rank spell than a 4th rank spell for something like this. And now it lasts for an hour. Same with the Speak with Animals, which allowed you to kind of negotiate with creatures. Now you can investigate and talk with plants for over the course of an hour, which I think just makes a lot more sense. Some more name changes here. Vampiric Touch got changed to Vampiric Feast, which honestly just sounds cooler, so I'm all for it. And after that, Non-Detection got changed to Veil of Privacy. So it definitely sounds a lot more magical, a lot more esoteric, and I think it better conveys what the spell does. So I'm also a big thumbs up for this particular change. I think we're already past halfway on the video, so I'm just going to go ahead and plug this in here. If you're enjoying this content and you want to see more of it, like and subscribe. Like increases the chance other people get the chance to see this video, and subscribing will allow you guys to see or will help anyway, you guys see all the content I produce here on the channel. I'm going to be doing remaster content pretty much up until the 15th and give my overall views, but I also talk all things tabletop here. So if you want to learn about other tabletop games or just get more in-depth Pathfinder information, well, this is the channel to be. An interesting change here, the creation spell really didn't change overall, but now the creation spell does gain the trait based on the material you make. Wood if it's a wooden item, or metal if it's a metal item. This is something that I'm sure will have some implications. I'm sure there's already some talk around what this could apply to. I do like it though, because this does just create potential synergies with the creation spell. As creation is one of my favorite spells, I feel gets a little underutilized because it does necessitate a lot of creativity to employ, and I think this is actually a very good change. Globe of Invulnerability got its name changed to Dispelling Globe, which I think overall makes a lot more sense. Globe of Invulnerability was so much not what was written on the tin. You're like, oh, so I can just not be damaged. Well, no, it's just, all it does is dispel stuff. So Dragon Breath, whatever, still works. So I feel like this is just a much less misleading name for it, and I'm very much for this change. And I didn't realize, I think we're already in the 4th level of spells, as we have Fire Shield, and I moved my camera because, I'll remember to do it this time. Forgot in the last video, I'm sorry. Anyway, Fire Shield. Huge, actually. I really love the changes to Fire Shield because now you make an actual fire shield. It's no longer just like this aura you have on, and instead you do just manifest a fiery shield. So you still get the 5 cold resistance, but now you even gain immunity to mild and severe environmental cold, which I think is really cool. You can also raise a shield with Fire Shield as a normal shield to gain a +1 circumstance to your AC, and you can use the shield block reaction, where this shield has a 10 hardness and 40 HP and is obviously immune to fire. Though technically, it couldn't block a fire effect because you couldn't use it on non-physical damage before, which is a little silly, but yeah, there were feats that could allow you to do so. So now that it's immune to fire, that's pretty cool. And its hardness is actually reduced in half when it blocks anything with the water trait, which is important to know. Now, it still does the thorns damage essentially whenever... Oh no, it only does the thorn damage now if you shield block a melee attack. That's interesting, actually. That's kind of a nerf. Because before, one of the points of Fire Shield was you activated it, and enemies that attacked you with either non-reach or unarmed strikes would take 2d6 fire damage. But now it says if you shield block a melee attack that is either unarmed or against an adjacent attacker, the attacker takes 2d6 fire damage, which is interesting. That's kind of a nerf, in my opinion. And I guess one of the other annoying things is now Fire Shield, in order to get the most benefit out of it, you need to use the Raise a Shield action, which means when you cast it, it's technically like a 3-rank spell. I like the spell overall, don't get me wrong. I think the 10 hardness and 40 HP is a really good fire like shield in general. So if you can get this one, even like especially as a non-caster, this is just a really good way to get a really good shield essentially that you can use in combat. I do think that it does kind of shift away a little bit from its initial intent, which was to make a caster unappealing because attacking them would deal damage back to the attacker. Now, not only does it necessitate raising a shield, but you need to use the shield block reaction, which takes your reaction to get the benefits of this. So, Fire Shield has kind of moved away from like a caster spell into more a martial spell or any kind of caster that's playing a martial play style kind of spell, which I don't know how I feel about it, honestly. Now, as has been said ad nauseum in prior videos and everything, you can still use this version in official play and society play. They are permitting the use of old material and new material, but this does kind of contradict with what some people have been saying, that if it has the same name, it you get the change. So yeah, this is just one of the, this is why I don't like the statement of, well, if it doesn't, if the same the spell with the same name isn't there, then you can just use it. They're right now they're permitting the use of old spells. So this fire shield or the old fire shield, whichever suits you better. But I will say I do like this overall. I do like the intent behind it, and I think this is a very good spell, though it does kind of move it away from casters. Some more name changes here. Blink got changed to Flicker, and Glibness got changed to Honeyed Words. Flicker makes sense for Blink. It's the same thing, more or less. I'm pretty neutral on the name change. Though Glibness being changed to Honeyed Words makes sense, I guess. I like glibness more, but I understand the reason for the name change. Honeyed Words makes it seem more like you're trying to entice the target when that's not what the intent of the spell really is. It just kind of makes it easier for you to lie. So yeah, I would have gone with like silvery words or something like that. I don't know. But overall, pretty neutral overall. Now, here is potentially a new spell. I couldn't find like an old version that kind of matched exactly what this one was. So if this is replacing another spell, y'all can let me know in the comments below. But Luminal Doorway is a new spell. It has a 10-minute cast time. It has a range of touch and it lasts for 8 hours. 10 minutes for 8 hours. I mean, like, I understand it, but man, that feels kind of rough. And I wish it was a cast time of a minute, but I understand the reason why, because of what the spell does. So you draw a chalk doorway on an unbroken surface, which opens into an extra dimensional space. It kind of pretty much creates like a closet, right? So this space is a small room of 20 feet width and depth and height. So I guess technically more like a garage than a closet. The space is unadorned and empty, with chalk lines indicating the corners of the walls. I love the thematics behind that. If the drawing is scrubbed away, the underlying surface is broken, or a creature attempts to enter the space that would put it over capacity, the space begins to collapse. The space ejects one creature at random each round, depositing it on the nearest open ground until all creatures are returned outside. So Luminal Doorway was a way that you could easily like hide or put objects into it. So making it 10 minutes makes it something that you couldn't necessarily do as on the fly, but I would argue 1 minute would create for more interesting situations, honestly. I'm pretty neutral on this spell. I mean, I think it's interesting. I think there's ways it can be utilized, but it still creates a doorway. So it's like, it's not necessarily for hiding, and there are much better ways to hide with spells in general. I don't know. I mean, I'm all for whatever creates extra dimensional spaces. I think that is something. Also, this one doesn't have the, actually, maybe that's a part of the extra dimensional trait. I'll zip my lip on that thought. But yeah, so potentially a new spell or an old spell that got reworked. I'm not 100% sure, so I'm sure you'll let me know. Some more name changes here. Hallucinatory terrain, my bad, changed to Mirage. And Stone Skin changed to Mountain Resilience, which, I mean, goes with Oaken Resilience, so it makes a lot of sense. Mirage, I mean, hallucinatory terrain obviously is a bit of a mouthful, as you can tell. So I like Mirage better. Though I think Mirage is also a spell in D&D, which this is kind of a weird situation where it's like a spell got changed to a spell that's already a spell in D&D, but it does something very different. I'm not sure. I'm not 100% sure on that. That's just an interesting thought. Mountain Resilience makes a lot of sense, just naming convention wise, and just sounds really cool. So, yeah, overall, pretty solid name changes. All right, Private Sanctum got changed to Peaceful Bubble, which honestly is not the coolest name change in my opinion. Does mostly the same things, only it has been slightly reworked. Now you can change the size of the sanctum, making it smaller in 10-foot increments. And as well, this one now is more designed for keeping your like dreams secured. So creatures sleeping within the bubble are immune to dream sense spells. And those sleeping 8 hours reduce their doom condition by 2 rather than 1. Otherwise, it has the same features. Runes don't block travel, but those inside the bubble can't perceive the outside it, and vice versa. Detection and scrying effects are likewise blocked. So yeah, just a change to a spell that now has some different like functionality. Overall, I kind of like it. I think it's good. I wish the name was cooler, but Peaceful Bubble I guess works. More name changes. If you're noticing, there's a lot of name changes. As I think the higher level we go, the more we're just going to see many spells just get a name change and not be reworked, which makes a lot of sense. And honestly, it will make these videos a little bit shorter, which I'm all for. So first we got Dimensional Anchor. It's been changed to Planar Tether. Then we have Dimension Door changed to Translocate. And Freedom of Movement changed to Unfettered Movement. And as well, Gaseous Form changed to Vapor Form. Many of these are very popular D&D spells, so they name changes make sense. I will say Dimensional Anchor being changed to Planar Tether does sound pretty cool. Planar Tether sounds much cooler than Dimensional Anchor. So I'm all for that one. Translocate makes a lot of sense for Dimension Door. Unfettered Movement is just another way of saying freedom of movement, so kind of neutral. Same with Gaseous Form to Vapor Form. So, like, one really cool name change, another one that's pretty okay, and then the other two are just kind of like, meh. It just arose by any other name, So, yeah. All right, we have a quite a popular spell, Phantasmal Killer, being changed to Vision of Death and being slightly reworked. So now it just states it's a 8d6 damage on essentially a will save that does additional things. So now no longer does it have like absurd text where it's just like it does half damage at the success rank, like obviously. And no longer does it only do 12d6 on a crit failure. Now it does double damage, which is technically better because that means it's technically 16d6 damage on crit failure, which, I mean, not how it works technically by how they do crit damage in this game, but equivalently, it's about the same. And now the target doesn't die on a crit fail, or doesn't have a chance to die on a crit failure with an additional fortitude save, which could be seen as a bit of a downgrade, but crit failures were not super common. So, I'm not super upset about it, but now anytime the target is reduced to 0 HP by this spell, it is instantly killed, which is, I think, a very big part of the spell in general. So I think with some types of enemies, being able to more easily kill them when they hit 0 HP makes more sense than the chance with a second save on a save that is more typically the stronger save, or at least neutral save for a level, being fortitude saves. I think overall just makes the spell work better. And now no longer does Phantasmal Killer Vision of Death have the incapacitation trait. So that means this spell works in generally pretty well against boss enemies, because not only is it a solid way to give frightened damage, in fact, this actually makes it slightly better than the fear spell even though it's using a higher level slot, obviously. But now it does damage and frightens, and the enemy isn't automatically getting a level of success better than what they roll. So, in exchange for like a potential insta kill on like a mook enemy, this is now something that works better on bosses. Still has an insta kill effect when they hit 0 HP, which can be situationally helpful. And overall is just better for use against boss battles, which I think makes this a very good spell in general. So Vision of Death, in my mind anyway, getting a pretty big buff in comparison to Phantasmal Killer, but more specifically against boss enemies. All right, and this is actually the section that what caused me to not go further on with the 5th rank spells, just because it's something that I want to do, even though it may or may not have any major relevance. But I'm going to list off the names of the spells that did not show up in this book that were originally from the core book. Now, we might see these in Player Core 2. There's a chance that maybe they'll just get left out and just be kind of in the Archive of Nethys, a void, rather, of things that not technically removed, but not in print. I'm not sure. I just figured I'd mention these spells as they're not found in this book. And there's a good chance we'll probably see a lot of these in Player Core 2, or maybe they'll just be Archive of Nethys exclusives. Who knows? There's actually quite a lot. So let me pull, and actually, you know what? There you go, back front and center. So we have Animal Vision, Circle of Protection. Now, Circle of Protection might be getting removed from the game just because it's more alignment focused. I'm not 100% sure. So I put it in this section rather than the remove section, which there is a remove section. So stay tuned for that. Glyph of Warding, Invisibility Spear, Sanctified Ground, Secret Page, Shrink Item, Stinking Cloud, Wanderer's Guide, Airwalk, and Anathematical Reprisal. Another one that you would think was actually alignment based, but is more based on Anathema, which is what they're kind of pushing for this new change away from alignment. So I think it's just going to show up in the next book. Discern Lies, Holy Cascade, Rope Trick, Solid Fog, Spell Immunity, Suggestion, and Veil. So these are all spells that aren't in this book that I'm sure we're going to see in the next book in Player Core 2, or maybe even just kind of be, left to the void of Nethys. Regardless, in post remaster, you can still use these spells, so it doesn't really matter. They're just old material. You can find them on Archive of Nethys. Paizo has gone on to say that old material is completely compatible, so don't worry. But I do think we're going to be seeing these spells in the next book and probably remastered versions of them. Or it was just a space thing, which has been mentioned before, that they wanted to keep this book as small as possible despite it being 466 pages. So, yeah. Though I also now have a list of removed spells that I know are removed because it's something we talked about with the counteract spells, I guess, or the restoration type spells that came in the last video. So now we no longer will have neutralize poison, remove disease, or remove curse, as these are already kind of taken up by the whatever cleanse removal type spells from the spell rank 2 video, which was last video. So part 2 will have the reason why these spells are removed, but I guarantee they're intended to be removed, as now we just have, I guess, technically fewer spells for removing things like, fear, disease, curses, all that kinds of stuff. But yeah, so that is this video. This one hopefully is not super long. Now, the next video might be like a 40-minute video, give or take, depending if I want to try to get... I do want to try to get some other stuff out before the book actually releases, like talking about ancestry changes. I did promise someone I'd do domain spell stuff as well, and I lost a day due to sleep, so I'm not sure. But yeah, so we either have one more video of this. I might just push for one more video of this, honestly. That's what I'm feeling, because I'll have Monday, Tuesday, and then Wednesdays when it reveals. So yeah, maybe I'll do a double video. I would hate to do that, but maybe I will. I'm not sure. But that's it for this video. Thank you all so much for watching. Hopefully you got information you found useful in this. And, well, yeah, that's going to be it for me. I was going to go on, but I'm tired. Anyway, good luck with your games. Lead the bad luck to me. And I'll see you all tomorrow with part 4. Bye.